Hey everyone, welcome back to the hardware news recap for the week. In this one, we'll be talking about just a discussion topic of a 7600X3D. It's not any official news from AMD or anything, but there's been a lot of comments about it since the 7900 and 7950 reviews. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, what that would look like. It is an interesting topic after all. But additionally in news, we're going to be talking about GPU shipments being down massively. No big surprise there. Mining motherboards being rebranded as business motherboards. And then Tom's Hardware debunking some IGP claims about the 7950X3D. Before that, this video is brought to you by Montek's Metal DT24 base. This two-fan tower cooler keeps a simple black and metal look to match most build aesthetics, and it runs a 6 heat pipe design with 2 towers and 2 fans for higher performance air cooling. The Metal DT24 base can also accommodate taller memory modules because it cuts back the fin stack closest to the first DIMM slot. The Metal DT24 base uses a standard mounting mechanism and is easy to install. Learn more at the link in the description below. So starting with the 7600X3D topic, this traditionally would have been in an AskGN or something, but we didn't have anywhere better to put it right now. So it's going here. This idea came up because the 7950X3D and the 7900X3D isolate all of their stacked cache on just one CCD. And the 7900X3D specifically is a 6+6 design, which makes way for a 7600X3D. Now, a 7600X3D would probably kick the ass of basically everything if it were anywhere close to a 7600 or even a 7700X price, just because in terms of value, it gets a lot of the performance that the 79 or 7950 would get, the 3D versions, sans the production performance. But it would be much simpler. It would only be one CCD. It should be cheaper to make, should be cheaper to buy. So the idea here would be, because we know AMD is capable of making a 6-core CCD, and because the 7600 series, it's 6-core CPUs, you could feasibly have a single 6-core CCD with the V-cache on it. And so maybe a 64 plus 32 config or something like that for L3. And then you would have a 7900X3D, except without the other CCD that's basically unused in gaming anyway when you're using the core parking feature. So that's why a 7600X3D would be so interesting, because it kind of already exists. You just get rid of the extra 6 cores that aren't being used in gaming anyway. Now, as for the question of, will this exist? This is where we get into opinion territory. So internally, we were talking about this. I was talking about this with Jeremy and Patrick on the team. And the thing that we came away with was AMD would do it maybe if Intel was kicking its ass hard enough. So if there's enough pressure from Intel that AMD is missing out on significant sales in the market, other CPUs aren't moving, then it would definitely make sense. Because it's kind of a domineering move where you're like, bam, there's a $350 whatever CPU, and good luck to you. But right now, a 7600X3D, we think, would just cannibalize the sales of the other X3Ds and probably stuff like 7700X and up for gaming users. Now, it wouldn't compete with those for people who do workstation application stuff in addition to their gaming. So if you use, I don't know, Photoshop, if you do a lot of compression, decompression, actually, Photoshop, probably not. That one's probably not affected too much. But for things like code compile, Blender cycles rendering for animation work, if you use the CPU for rendering, stuff like that, you would still want the higher core count. It benefits you more than the cache does, as we showed in our reviews. But for gaming, a 76X3D would be incredibly interesting. Now, in terms, again, of whether or not this would materialize, I'd like it to. I think a lot of us would, certainly on the team here, because it'd be an interesting part and it would probably be very competitive. I think that would probably be like a 5800X3D true successor, where it's more of a value champion. It probably gets most of the performance of the 79X3D in gaming, and you don't lose a lot for sort of mainstream users. But it probably will not unless there's substantial pressure for AMD, and that pressure is not going to come from consumers. It's got to come from their competitor. So anyway, interesting discussion topic. Technologically, it makes complete sense because that part exists already. You're just removing one of the chiplets. So there's no reason that AMD can't make a 76 except for finance and market reasons, like keeping the ASP, the average selling price, boosted as high as they can, and moving as many of the more expensive chips as they can. especially if they're just trying to get rid of chiplet inventory. So, okay, first story. So this one it's Schrodinger's GPU sales. A new report from John Petty Research shows that GPU shipments are simultaneously both up and down. Don't open the box of, it's like, what's in the box? The economy. The economy is both dead and alive at the same time, as long as you don't open the box to check. So in this instance, it's GPU sales. The year-over-year decrease is 38% when in aggregate, looking at everything. And specifically, JPR notes that desktop graphics have gone down by 24%, which is a large drop. However, and this is where there's some nuance here, JPR also reports that discrete GPU sales, so specifically video cards, those are up 8%. So a little bit confusing mixture of numbers. Now, the way this works out, overall desktop sales being down is not a surprise. Every mainstream user and probably a lot of enthusiast users got what they wanted in the 2020 to 2021 period, where there were more products than ever being made in desktop computers, graphics cards, everything else. However, there was still a shortage. Obviously, the indication there is everybody was buying stuff and most of them got what they wanted in that period. Those users aren't going to be back until there's too much dust on their computer. They bring it to Geek Squad and Geek Squad says, you need a new computer. Would you like to buy one of these? So that's not a big surprise. Now, mining sales are also down, which contributes to a large part of the swing here. And that's because Ethereum mining has been turned off. It's gone. Like, blink of an eye, no more mining market. So what that leaves us with is a couple of numbers to look at. First of all, the year-over-year decrease in aggregate, 38%, and then quarter-over-quarter, the overall number of shipments went down 15%. Despite this, though, the number of discrete GPUs shipped increased by nearly 8% since Q3, and that's likely largely due to the usual spending from end-of-year shopping, as people buy for Christmas and Black Friday and other major events and holidays around the world. So the overall numbers include things like laptops and other devices with onboard graphics. And that's why you have that overall aggregate trend going down. But specifically discrete cards like the 4070 Ti, the 7900 XTX, those go up. So it's a big change from the years past where it was the marketing strategy for how do we sell our video card was just make one. It'll sell. Does it exist? Then it's sold.
The GeForce RTX 3080 Ti.
It's a lot harder now, and that's probably a good thing for all of us. Next one, Tom's Hardware debunks a 7950 X3D IGP claim. So this story came out around the time everyone was publishing the 7950 X3D reviews. There was a post from PC Mag, not to be confused with PC World, and PC Mag suggested that the integrated graphics of the IGP for the 7950 X3D would benefit from a 3 to 4x increase over the 7950X integrated graphics. Even though it's the same, the only thing that's changed is the 3D V-cache. Now, this got a lot of spread online. We didn't do any integrated graphics testing. Honestly, it's because we looked at it, we're like, $700 CPU, kind of garbage integrated graphics. Reasonably, no one's going to be using this in this way. Like, there's some uses out there, yes, we know you exist. You can stop typing your comment. We understand that you want to be able to put display out from your 7950 X3D and not use a GPU because you're just going to do CPU workloads. Cool. But for gaming purposes, it didn't make sense to test for us. So we didn't look at it. And this story kind of developed and then completely changed in the time since. Now, basically, PC Mag posted that article. They said 3 to 4x increase, and that's on an RDNA 2 GPU, IGP. So this was enough for it to spread quickly. And when we were reading the Reddit comments, it looked like most of the people online were associating the increase with the presence of the cache, which is interesting because that's not really how it works. You could probably create a weird concoction in your head of why that would make sense, but the IGP doesn't talk to that cache. It has its own cache, and then it also has system memory it needs to go to. But the reason people were coming to this conclusion is logical, because an IGP will almost always gain performance if you have better memory, system memory attached to it, because it has no onboard memory. So without the presence of GDDR6 or something on a physical card containing your GPU and your memory in a closed ecosystem almost, it makes sense that faster system memory would improve the rest of the speed, and so people also thought faster local cache or SRAM would further increase that speed. Paul Alcorn of Tom's Hardware was the first to do a validation pass on the claim for PCMag, at least the first we're aware of. And Alcorn's title tells it all. He wrote, "No, the 7950X3D's iGPU isn't 4x faster than the 7950X's." Simple enough. It's very direct, and we like that. So Alcorn wrote the following. He said, "The iGPU resides on the I/O die and is a self-contained unit with its own L2 cache. As such, it doesn't access the L3 cache on the compute die in any meaningful way. Therefore, any performance gains couldn't come from additional cache bandwidth. Rather, any increase would have to come from the 7950X3D's phenomenal gains in CPU compute performance." Now, if you want to see the actual iGPU benchmarking results, we're not going to show that here. Go to the Tom's Hardware article on their website, check out Paul Alcorn's article, and you can get the actual numbers there, but it's not 3 to 4x. So that's the end of that story. Not sure what went on with PCMag's testing. It's pretty easy to screw up testing if you're not careful, and every now and then you get results, you're like, wow, that's amazing, it doesn't seem real. And you need to validate it to make sure it's not real. So anyway, not sure exactly how they tested it. We don't really follow PCMag, honestly. But that's the follow-up on that post. So if you're wondering, why isn't GN showing the massive gains? There's your answer. GSkill Overclocking World Cup 2023. So GSkill has announced it will be hosting an OC event during Computex, which is a major trade show. It's actually our favorite. There's always a lot of really cool stuff there. And that's the one that's in Taiwan. We haven't done that trade show in years. So it's coming back, and for the 2023 show, the OC competition will be hosted at the GSkill booth. They will have a first place prize of $10,000 for best overclocking scores and whatever benchmarks they're using, and the total prize pool is 40 grand US. Pretty damn good. In the past, we've worked with a lot of overclockers at the GSkill OC booth at Computex, so look out for content because it's where we worked with Kingpin of EVGA. It was where actually we did some of our first videos with him many years ago. We worked with Joe Stepanzi there, who's been a regular guest on the show, Der Bauer, 8-Pack, and plenty of others. There's going to be an online qualifier from March 1st to April 5th on HardwareBot to determine the 9 finalists who will be invited to the live competition. Those 9 will compete first in a live qualifier to narrow it down to 3, and then those 3 will compete in the grand final. All 9 of the original competitors will receive a GSkill kit of DDR5 7800, and then 3 random participants who complete all stages of the online qualifier, regardless of whether you make it through, will be given a DDR5 7200 kit. So there's potential to get something anyway, even if you just want to hack around with it. All participants have to use GSkill memory. It's GSkill sponsored, and they are also doing this competition on LGA 1700 platforms, so that's going to be 12th and 13th gen Intel. The stages include memory frequency, Cinebench R15, kind of interesting for that one, Y-Cruncher, and SuperPi. And if you're interested in trying it out, you can find all the rules and the sign up on the HardwareBot website. This is the first time since 2019 that the event's being held. It was canceled from 2020 to 2022 for obvious reasons. We were actually there during the event in 2019, and it was a ton of fun. XOC events like this are really special in the industry. It's cool to see them coming back. Up next, mining motherboards being just poof converted into, we're not mining motherboards anymore. It's the classic rebrand. BioStar announced it has some new motherboards for Intel Z590, and that is the first indication that they're not new, because Z590 is from January of 2021. So we're going on 2 years at this point. It's 10th and 11th gen CPUs, and Z590, well, the boards, the names kind of give them away. The new names are marketed for business users because they are called TZ590 Pro and TZ590 Pro Duo. And as we all know, the word pro means that you are a professional. You don't play any games whatsoever. You are very serious, and you are a business person who doesn't play games, except for one thing, which is that these motherboards date back to 2021 and 2022, and it wasn't just marketing that they were made for mining, it was all the way down to the name. The boards are the exact same as the TZ590-BTC, wonder what that stands for, and the BTC Duo. Maybe we had it wrong all along, and those were also business boards. The 590 business trade crypto, damn it. Well, it was worth a shot, but we'd be willing to bet that BioStar had a ton of these in inventory as they're no longer able to sell them due to the mining industry falling apart. Instead of letting them rot or just sending them to be shredded for e-waste, BioStar rebadged them as new in an attempt to keep them moving. The obvious tells include short PCIe by 1 slots that are everywhere, typically used with risers, the dual 24 pins on the right edge to allow use of 2 power supplies at once easily, the rear I/O is pretty sparse, and frankly, it's amazing that they even included audio of any kind. Surely there's enough room for an old sound card somewhere in one of the 9 PCIe slots. Personally, we look forward to the inevitable future when new PC builders encounter boards like this and have no idea what's going on. It'll be a ripe opportunity for back in my day stories as people ask, what the hell is this and can I do 9-way SLI? Up next, GELID, which is known mostly for its diamond thermal compound from like a decade ago. If you've been building computers a while, you definitely know the name. They've launched a new line of closed-loop CPU coolers. As far as we're aware, these are the first closed-loop coolers that they've made. So there's a new endeavor for them. They're called the GELID Liquid 240 and 120, very unique names. As far as pricing, they're coming in at fairly competitive prices, actually, of $85 for the 240 and $66 for the 120. 120 is not typically worth buying, except maybe in SFF builds. But for the 240, it's not bad. It's close to where Arctic was really dominating for a while. The radiator itself doesn't look like anything special. It features ARGB fans, and the interesting part is that they have central infinity mirrors. So the infinity mirror, or as they call it, the infinite mirror on the pump housing, has a central display capable of showing liquid temperature and pump rotation speed. And at this price point, that's a rare feature. You do get to see that higher up, like in the 150s, but not commonly down here. So the only downside is that it would be kind of hard to read those things unless you're looking like straight on into the pump block. But otherwise, if you wanted some of the fancy lighting without going up to the 120, 150 price point, this might be an entry for you. The Liquid 240 and 120 are available on GELID's site. They have mounting hardware for AM5 and LGA 1700, and we have no plans to test these in our cooler bench. So sorry, we're probably not gonna have numbers for you on these. But they're out there. If there's enough interest, we'll look at the next round. Up next is an insane folding keyboard. If there were a competition for most awkward looking keyboard, this would probably, well, I don't know. There's probably some out there in the enthusiast space that are pretty awkward. But this would probably be in the competition. So the video starts with some very compelling marketing text. We instantly wanted it when we saw it. The text says, "Still doing it on a desk?" And just like the use of prepositional phrases in that sentence, this keyboard is a little bit extra. It's completely covered in keys and inputs on the front and back. It's called the Grab Shell, and it's coming to market later this year. So if you want the Grab Shell, you can get it for a whopping $400 or $300 for the Grab Shell pre-order special. Compared to some fully custom keyboards, purely relatively, I'm told that's actually not too bad, but personally I'm not really into the keyboard space because a lot of my job is typing, and using the loud keyboards makes people mad. So I've switched to quieter ones, and I'm not gonna say what I use because probably a lot of you will be very upset with me. So let's just move on past the keyboards that we use, that I use anyway in the office. Either way, it's not this one, but it could be. You hold it in your hands and you type on the backside while your thumbs on the front use secondary keys like spacebar and shift. The front also has a joystick, a trackball for a mouse input, as well as a toggle switch that does something. The bottom is flat, so you can rest it on a desk when you're not carrying it around. It's actually not the intended use case, but it's not confined to this one configuration. You can also unfold the back like wings to make it lay entirely flat and spread it out on a desk, somewhat like traditional typing, kind of. I'm sure by this point, someone has already typed a comment of, "But Steve, there's keyboards that aren't loud that you could use and are nice." And to that I say, I like my low-end keyboards. The company making it, .bravo, tells the story of how GrabShell's inspiration came from one of its developers internally. They said that they have a passionate software developer on the team who always carried around a keyboard and a computer everywhere for taking notes, like in meetings. One day this came up in a meeting, and the developer suggested the company make a keyboard you hold while typing. The main page for the Grab Shell has some questionably translated copy, like this ominous section about writing code that finishes with, "I want to die holding onto this keyboard when I die." I was trying to think of what that looks like. Do they make like the tombstone just a person holding a keyboard, or do you die because you're holding the keyboard? I don't know, but I like the marketing. There's a fine line between brilliance and madness, and we've definitely found it. It's actually gotten quite blurry right now. This next one's short and simple. Microsoft is expanding the list of locations in which people can use its Xbox Game Pass service. At the end of February, 40 more places were added, including Costa Rica, Egypt, and Iceland. People in these new markets who want to try it out can sign up as Xbox Insider, and then it gives you access to Xbox Game Pass, and it's supposed to launch fully in the next few months. It's not fully enabled yet. Either way, they've been pushing Game Pass a lot the last couple of years. It's just one of those, like, if you don't want to own any games and you want your entire life to be a subscription, then I guess you could sign up for it. But it's going to be available in new places. And speaking of Microsoft, this one is about Windows rolling out a permanent watermark feature for Windows 11. So if you're familiar with the Activate Windows watermark, it's going to be a new one. And this one is simply going to say system requirements not met. And then under it will say go to settings to learn more. So they're rolling this one out because the company doesn't think you should be able to run Windows 11 on systems that technically don't officially meet the requirements for Windows 11, even though they can run Windows 11. And even though this might seem contradictory, they're saying that it's always been possible to circumvent prerequisites like TPM 2.0, but they don't want you to be able to do that. You can still make a custom install image, though, to bypass all of this. In fact, tools like Rufus have given users the ability to create custom Windows 11 boot media that disregards the requirements entirely. It can get around the part that requires an internet connection as well, so check that out if you want to keep using local accounts. It's actually one of the things we do here. We have to use local accounts for all of our test benches, so we don't have a bunch of internet crap going on to ruin the data, but you could do it too. Now, the watermarking technique is similar to how Microsoft handles unregistered copies of Windows, and they basically are just seeking to annoy you into submission with things like TPM 2.0 and whatever else. So generally speaking, the security measures that Microsoft requires for Windows 11 are good things. It just feels backhanded to call them requirements when clearly the systems can run them completely fine without it, and then to trick less savvy users into buying things that maybe they don't really need. And up last, some more DDR5 variety finally coming to the market. So there's Corsair 24 and 48 gigabyte DIMMs coming out. There's also GSkill Zeta R5 kits for HEDT, and there's a new kit of very shiny zRGB from NetAC. NetAC. We'll go with NetAC. So Intel's 13th gen is the last modern processor to support DDR4 memory. We're truly entering the age of DDR5. And with more options, hopefully there's going to be some more price range. First, Corsair launched a new Vengeance set of kits based on 24 and 48 gigabyte DIMMs. All of the DDR5 on the market so far has been based on 8, 16, and 32, so this is different. These new sizes enable kits with total capacities of 48 and 96 gigabytes with only 2 sticks, or 192 with 4 48s. Using these, you'd be able to put together a very potent mobile workstation for video editing or other memory-hungry tasks. The drawback, though, is speed. The advertised transfer rate is only up to 5,600 megatransfers per second, far from the 8,000 that we see in kits today at the absolute high end. Next, GSkill is launching new quad and octa-channel DDR5 kits called Zeta R5. These accompany the launch of Intel's new workstation CPU lineup of W2400 and 3400 Xeons on the W790 platform. Advertised transfer rates go up to 6,400 megatransfers per second for the 8x16 kit and 6,000 for the 8x32. GSkill didn't announce pricing at the time of writing, but these are bound to be extremely expensive just based on the size. And lastly, NetAC is launching new zRGB branded DDR5 up to 8,000 megatransfers per second. These stand out for their polished silver-colored heat spreaders featuring a large Z cut into the side, reminiscent of a certain departed memory brand. The heat spreaders are secured with screws. That means the memory can use an actual thermal pad in place of the thermal adhesive tape we normally see, which is a lot worse at conducting heat. You can see this along with other real photos of the RAM in a post on mydrivers.com. And NetAC isn't commonly found in Western markets, so we don't know if this kit will be available anytime soon or at all in the West. And that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. As always, subscribe for more. You can go to store.gamersnexus.net to help us out directly if you'd like to grab a mod mat, toolkit, coaster pack, or other items, or patreon.com/gamersnexus. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time.